Hey guys, Ben Paynes here. Today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are actually down at the new rebranded Dunkeswell Raceway. Now obviously this used to be formerly known as Mansell Raceway. Really excited to give this one a go. It's a really lovely day, the sun's out, and the last time we came here was almost a year and a half ago, so really excited to get on with this one. We are taking part in the Corporate Championship, which is a new privately run championship by the track, and I think there's about 40 drivers that can sign up, so we're one of them. We're going to give it our best shot and see what we can do just for a little bit of fun. Now the format for this one, we have a 10-minute practice / qualifying, which will then sort of filter us down into consequenting A, B and C finals. So we're going to see where we end up. It is all unweighted, so we're just down here for a bit of track time and a bit of fun, but without further ado we're going to jump into the rest of the footage. Now before we do that, if you do enjoy this video, can you please leave a like on the video down below, as I really do appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it really does help me out. Now without further ado, we're going to jump straight into the footage and see how we get on in qualifying. As mentioned then guys, we are jumping straight into our practice qualifying session. Only 10 minutes, and that was actually reduced quite significantly, as you are going to see later on throughout this video. Now I am just going to jump in here very quickly just to give you guys a little bit of a layout of the track. If you haven't seen it before, obviously it used to be called Mansell Raceway as known in the past, whereas now it has been rebranded to Dunkeswell Raceway. Obviously it's exactly the same track. I don't know if the karts are new, they felt pretty similar, and if I'm honest, the parity was a little bit off, as you will see later in the video as well. I'd also like to apologise for the wind noise in the beginning of the video and also later on in the video. Didn't realise how windy it was, and it may have disrupted what I was saying a little bit as I'm editing this one. But as you can see straight away, that is a lap of the track, and we do get underway here, putting our foot down to the floor and passing Sam Gaskell on the left hand side, who we came down to the track with. Now obviously Sam isn't this slow, and this is one of the major signs that we realised there was a little bit of kart parity to begin with. You can see I look over my shoulder and he's nowhere to be seen. Now I didn't know if he was backing off to try and give himself a little bit more space in this qualifying session, because it was just a 10-minute practice qualifying, and obviously if you mess this up you're going to be down in one of the lower finals, and there's just less points on offer for the corporate championship that we are taking part in. Now this is a 7-round championship. There is one drop round. Unfortunately I'm missing the second round due to competing in the Kart Race of Champions, so every result had to count. And you can see pretty quickly the driver in front of us there taking all sorts of lines and is still able to get a better exit on us coming down the start finish line. Now these drivers then began to just sort of trundle around, and unfortunately here I just decided to back off a little bit and give myself a little bit of space to perform some laps. However, we weren't able to complete many laps before this instant up ahead happened, where the driver decided to absolutely plough through the barriers, which then took the marshals 5 or 6 minutes of our 10-minute session to actually sort the barrier out. So we were under yellows for a good 5 to 6 minutes, so we only had 4 minutes of track time essentially. And now you can see I do my best Lance Stroll impression here as we come up behind Joel, give him a little bit of a tap and just spin out. I just completely underestimated when he was going to brake a little bit earlier than I thought, and instead of trying to save it I said just jam the brakes on it, ended up spinning out. Now what you are seeing here is in fact my final lap of qualifying, and this was in fact my fastest lap of qualifying. So we're going to get the timer up in the top right hand side of the video, and we're just going to try and walk through our fastest lap of qualifying really, which was a couple of attempts off our fastest lap of the day. So you can see here coming into the double sort of hairpin section, trying to open up the corner, missed the apex a little bit there unfortunately on this one, and then try and take as much as we can through the second one. Don't really want to hit any of the curbs on this track, as it really does throw the car off quite heavily and you lose a lot of momentum. Again, just not quite hitting the limit of the apex where we want to, opening up the corner but not too far as it extends the track limits too much, and just wasting a bit of time trying to keep the car pointed in as straight direction as we can. And we come across the line on this one with a 40.667 second lap time, which was actually only a couple of thousandths off of the fastest lap time in the session. So we did finish this one in second, and I believe that this put us in 4th or 5th for the A final. So we're going to jump into some thoughts after this session.
Okay then guys, so after our sort of 10-minute practice qualifying session, which was actually held up quite a fair bit by yellow flag, so it's quite difficult to put a good lap time in. However, we are in fact in 5th place overall in the A final. So we've had a pretty decent run. I believe that we got a 40.6 second lap time, which really happy with. Obviously haven't been here since the last time we came down here was a year and a half ago, so really happy to be on the pace pretty quickly, and we're in with quite a few talented drivers. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the footage from the A final. Currently the C final's out on track and then the B final, so we're going to jump into the A final now and we're going to see how we get on in the 30 lap race.
One little twist that I didn't mention going into the start of the 30 lap race is that everyone was unweighted, so it was just natural weight, and also you kept the same kart that you were given at the beginning of the day. Now unfortunately we lost out on the kart that we had due to a game of rock paper scissors with one of the other drivers starting behind us, and you could see immediately with my foot planted in the ground we just didn't get away very quickly. And you can see here that we are down in 4th, and the drivers up ahead have gained about 7 light years of space up ahead of us, which was really disappointing to see, as I didn't think I got caught napping. I had my foot on the throttle pretty early, but unfortunately the kart just didn't quite pick up and we were just sort of left for dead really. Now this actually happened to a lot of the drivers behind us as well. We did have right up behind us at this point Adrian Perez, who obviously we've raced against in SRK and Club 73, so we know that he's a pretty talented driver for Team 22. I knew that he was going to be coming up behind us pretty quickly as well. Now my aim was to try and get a podium from this position. However, you can see even though I'm really trying to push the kart as much as I can, we already get a 41.426. We're just not really gaining any time on the 3 drivers up ahead. The driver in 1st place has just sort of jetted off. They're checking out already, and the drivers in 2nd and 3rd are still just sort of battling with one another, close in behind one another, and I was hoping that they would just start fighting. However, this just didn't really happen. They just sort of drove together, drove away, and we were just sort of stuck in this sort of position in 4th place. And there is a lot of cuts in this footage. You can see already the gap we've opened up. That was actually Sam Gaskell on the right hand side. We know he's not that slow of a driver, but the car he had was about a second off the pace. So you can see the gap that we are eking out to the drivers behind, and we do come across the line with a 40.969. So not exactly a slow lap time by any means, but we just weren't able to gain on the drivers up ahead. And you can see as we jump later into the racing that what you are about to watch is in fact my fastest lap of the day, which was by no means the fastest lap of the day overall, but it was still a pretty respectable lap. So going into the 1st corner in this car, I was really having to jam the steering angle of the kart into the 1st corner and also every other corner. It just really wasn't very responsive when turning in. So you can see I'm having to use 90 degrees sort of steering lock, which I wasn't doing in practice. I was only having to use about 10 to 20%, so there was a high difference between each of the karts. You can see the drivers up ahead are finally having a bit of a battle. Again, just sort of stabbing at the brake to try and get the kart rotated before the corner, as I wanted to try and get as better exit out of each corner as I could. Again, not opening up the corner too much through the S section at the latter parts of the lap, and we come across the line with a 40.586, which was a pretty good lap time. Wasn't the quickest, as I mentioned. I believe someone got a 40.2, but I was really happy with this lap time considering the car and our weight. Now we do jump forward once again to finally see the 2 drivers up ahead who had sort of just stayed at the same distance throughout the rest of the race, and despite them battling really hard with one another, I just wasn't really catching up, and I was just sort of sitting at the same distance. So I was still through in my head that you should never give up in a race, especially in the longer format. As I've said this in many of my videos, if you sort of just give up, then you could be losing out on actions that happen up ahead. You can see here the drivers are really battling hard with one another. They had swapped positions a couple of times throughout the rest of this race, and again we're coming into the last sort of 1/3 of the race now, and they're really going hammer and tongs with one another. I was hoping that by the time we caught up some back markers that they would still be fighting and they would struggle to try and get through. So again, you can see here the driver behind, who's now in 3rd, was trying to set up a nice switchback here. Takes a bit of a wider line once again, and then looks for another switchback coming down the start finish straight. Gets a decent exit, but unfortunately doesn't look for the inside. Again, is looking for the inside multiple times, weaving in and out, and again we are just tucked in behind. And with their battling, we are slowly beginning to catch up with obviously just consistent lap times in the high 40s, mid 40s. we are now beginning to tag onto the back of them, and I thought at this point I would now have a chance to actually go for a podium position. However, unfortunately, you can see I'm in my despair, I'm raising my hand off the wheel. The car just didn't have any power coming out of the corners. I don't know if this is due to the kart parity or my weight or a nasty mixture of both. But at this point, we're now really close, accidentally bumping into the back of the driver in third place, just trying to carry a bit too much momentum through the corner. And luckily for this driver, they weren't the driver in second place. He goes for a huge move on Sam, and Sam was clearly unimpressed by that one. And luckily for us, this then moved us up into third place, so a free position onto the podium now at this point. And now I was hoping to try and make no mistakes, catch back up to second place, and maybe even look for an overtake towards the end of this one. I knew that there was only a few laps left, as we've been going around for about 20 laps at this point. So I knew that if I could just take the right lines, really try and maximise my exits, because I knew the acceleration of the kart wasn't the best, then I would really be on for a good chance at stealing second place right at the end. You can see I'm deploying all the human DRS I possibly can, coming across the line with 40.790, so not exactly a slow lap once again, and taking the inside curve there a little bit, and that's obviously just thrown us out wide. But we come down into the double hairpin section here, and again we're just trying to take nice smooth lines. We're getting nice mid-corner speed, but unfortunately once again on the exit of the corner we're just losing out there, and we're just sort of leaking about a kart length each time. And it's just unfortunate to see, as I was really thinking that we were driving better through the corners, really looking for a bit of a move here. Unfortunately, we just decided to back out of it there. Didn't want to go clattering into the side of the person in second position, but instead wanted to have a nice clean race with them. So coming back down the start finish line once again, you can see just from throwing ourselves off through that last section of the track there, we did lose a few attempts, going down to a 41.064, but we are still on the back of the driver behind. I was trying to point out that there were the back markers up ahead, so if the driver up ahead was struggling to get past these guys, then we were going to capitalise on it as much as we could. You can see here, trying to feint to the right here in the hopes that the driver sort of goes semi-defensive, but unfortunately we're just too far back to make any sort of impact. And again, just really getting so close, we're actually touch bumpers there, coming through the S section, and now coming down the start finish straight. I thought I'd have an overlap in speed, but unfortunately once again we just didn't, and it's just really upsetting to see. Didn't want to go for any huge dive bombs. Obviously this is only a little corporate championship, bit of fun, so I didn't want to go for anything silly, and unfortunately I just tried to tuck in behind him, did it a little bit too early there, and that gave him a little bit of a momentum boost once again. But through the double hairpin section once more, we're getting the kart turned in nice and early, getting on the power early, and unfortunately just not getting the exit speeds that we need to really go for a move into the critical overtaking points of the track, which obviously one of them is here. And you can see there we just run a little bit wide by clipping the deadly curves, as I mentioned, and if you hit that sort of bit of barrier there on the outside, you can see how much time and momentum we have now lost. You can see I'm trying to gain it back with any sort of form of human DRS that I can muster, but unfortunately we did just lose 4 or 5 car lengths, and that was all it really required to just lose the place really. And you can see a driver up ahead there just lets past the driver in second place, which unfortunately they didn't quite do for me. So you can see here we get a nice exit coming out of the double hairpin section, and I was sort of trying to wave to them, look, can you move over so we can go through and still have this battle with second place. But unfortunately the driver up ahead was having none of it, and we were going to just have to try and make our way past as best we could. So coming around the last couple of corners here, you can see I was sort of signaling to the marshals, there were already blue flags going on, but unfortunately there wasn't. And as we come down the start finish straight, this was in fact the very last lap of the race, so I knew I'd have to do something magnificent to come back from here. Obviously coming across the line with 40.676, not exactly a slow lap time, and again we just have to try and make as many moves as we can, diving down the inside of the back marker there to try and catch up with second place. But unfortunately at this point I knew it was a little bit too little too late. I wasn't really going to catch up on the 5 or 6 kart lengths that they have ahead of us, and we were in fact situated in third. So we're coming around the last couple of corners here, mucking up the horseshoe at the bottom half of the track there, unfortunately just bogging down a little bit and taking a little bit too much of a wide line. And this is in fact where we ended up finishing this race in P3 on the podium. Really happy with that one, but it does in fact bring us to the end of the video, guys, so I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, can you please leave a like on the video down below, as I really do appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it really does help me out. If you're close to the track or nearby, I highly recommend coming down for the next round to come and give it a go. But in the meantime, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.